At the prestigious Rigarden Magical Academy, talent for magic is valued above all else. Will, however, wonders if someone without any magical talent can still advance in this elite institution. To find answers, he ventures into a dungeon to slay monsters, believing that even without magic, he can succeed. Back at school, during a lesson, the professor, Edward, explains how to create sulfur and intentionally calls on Will to perform this simple practical exercise. All Will has to do is conjure a flame, but his incantation, Wingardium Leviosa, produces no results. The entire class erupts in laughter, making Will a laughingstock. Edward is baffled that a student at this academy cannot use the most basic of magics, further insulting Will by calling him a nerd who is only good at taking notes. From the back of the class, Sion effortlessly performs the practical test, demonstrating the stark difference between his magical prowess and Will's lack thereof. The successful display further emphasizes Will's shortcomings. To add salt to the wound, Professor Edward seizes the moment to lecture on the supremacy of magic in their world, declaring it to be the ultimate source of authority, power, and esteem. Edward despises Will, seeing him as unfit to be at the academy, due to his complete lack of magical aptitude. With a disdainful sneer, he suggests that Will withdraw from the academy, believing that someone without magic has no place in their prestigious institution. After the class, the laughter and Edward's scorn weigh heavily on Will. Sion and his friends find it amusing that the only way for Will to stay in the academy is to defeat Small Fry in the dungeon to get extra credit. Suddenly, Colette steps in to defend Will, arguing that he works harder than anyone and won't let Sion insult her friend. Taken aback, Sion starts laughing, mocking the idea that hard work alone will make Will a great mage, let alone someone who can become Magavander. With this, he finally leaves. Colette comforts Will, telling him not to let their words get to him. But Will is used to it. After all, it's true, he can't use magic. With a meek expression, he blurts out that he's lucky to have such a cute girl worrying about him. Colette, trying to stay composed, tells him not to casually say such things. But Will, with a sincere smile, says he was only speaking the truth, causing Colette to blush even more. Suddenly Will is lost in thought, admiring the scenery. The warm light emitting from the sky is home to the most powerful wizards, the Magavander. Long ago, people knew nothing of the sky. They were trapped in darkness. The world was terrorized by the celestial host, until 5 wizards rose up against them. These wizards turned back the invaders and cast a seal over the sky, bringing peace to their world. The Magavander, a title bestowed only upon the strongest mages, is every mage's dream. In his childhood, Will heard tales that the sun and moon are above the skies, and a beautiful sunset turns everything red. Inspired by these stories, Will and his friend Elfaria made a promise to become Magavander and see the sunset together. It was a childish promise, but for Elfaria, it became a reality. She was the youngest ever to earn the Magavander title and left for the top of the tower. As for Will, he is even less than mediocre, a talentless loser in the eyes of many. Yet, he still can't forget about the promise. Despite his lack of magical ability, he is determined to scramble his way to the top and stand beside Elfaria. Back at Professor Werkner's office, he reprimands Will for going to the dungeon's 7th floor solo, without permission. Despite the scolding, there's a silver lining. One confirmed kill earns Will 2 credits. A small victory for Will and his familiar Kiki. Seeing that Will still hasn't given up on becoming Magavander, Werkner explains the challenges ahead. Before even dreaming of such a title, Will needs to advance to the Upper Institute, which requires credits in 3 curricula: writing, spellwork, and praxis. Without magic, earning spellwork credits seems impossible. Yet, Will remains steadfast in his determination. Easing up, Werkner points out a critical deadline. If Will doesn't earn 4 more credits by the end of the week, he won't graduate. Will immediately dives into his notes, searching for 4-credit monsters. Feigning indifference, Werkner casually mentions a type of monster on the 6th floor that could provide the needed credits. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Will couldn't be more thankful. Unbeknownst to them, Sion has been listening in. With a grin, he now knows exactly how to get rid of the talentless loser for good. That evening, Will dives into the dungeon's 6th floor, searching for the Baskerville monster. He had a previous encounter with it that didn't end well, but this time he's better prepared. Meanwhile, Sion is in the same dungeon, plotting to eradicate the Baskerville monster before Will can, and ensuring Will falls short on credits and gets expelled. As Sion prepares to cast a search spell, a huge monster suddenly attacks, sending one of his friends flying and killing him instantly. It's a terrifying being, and another puppet screams in shock, attracting Will's attention. Will immediately dashes towards the scream and finds Sion helplessly firing fire magic at an evil sentinel, a monster worth 10 credits. This monster shouldn't even be on the 6th floor. Sion's magic is useless against it, and as the monster slowly approaches him, Will is torn. His first instinct is to help Sion, but he hesitates, questioning his obligation to save someone who has mocked and bullied him since day one. He closes his eyes, a memory of Ulferia surfacing. She had always told him he was kinder and braver than anyone. With her words echoing in his mind, Vil makes his decision. Just as the evil sentinel is about to kill Sion, Vil dashes in and blocks the attack. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Edward storms into Werkner's office, worryingly announcing that Sion went to the dungeon's 6th floor and pleading for help in locating him with his familiar. Werkner, knowing that Vil is also on the 6th floor, suggests a better method. Vil does well parrying Sentinel's attacks, utilizing his speed to strike him from the sides. Despite their difference in strength, Vil blocks maneuvers around the Sentinel's attacks and slashes through rocks thrown at him, always looking to counterattack from Sentinel's blind spot. Meanwhile, Sion sits helplessly, visibly shaken by the difference between him and Vil. Simultaneously, Kiki streams live footage directly to Werkner's office, leaving Edward astonished by Will's ability. Werkner emphasizes that Vil possesses superhuman strength beyond any mage's capabilities, coupled with keen observational skills that allow him to decipher an enemy's tactics after just one encounter. True, Vil lacks any magical ability, yet in a world where magic dominates, he stands as a unique warrior. Seizing the Sentinel's sword, Vil pierces through its violet laser and swiftly cuts the creature in half. Afterward, he approaches Sion heroically, offering his hand. However, instead of gratitude, Sion is infuriated by Will. Edward shares Sion's infuriation. How can someone devoid of magical talent surpass those who wield it? The next day, Werkner is mad again, but still, evil Sentinel warrants Vil 10 credits. 5 years ago, when Vil was only 10, he was the laughingstock of the entire school. He was only invited to the Royal Academy to lure Ulferia into attending. Despite that, Werkner stood up for him, and Vil proved his worth to the headmistress, showing her that he was above magic. She told Vil that if he could overcome the struggles of being magicless, he has the potential to one day stand at the top of the Light Tower. Back in the present, Werkner explains how to ascend the tower, mentioning that to reach the top, individuals must go through the Upper Institute and be recognized by the highest center of learning. There are mainly 2 ways to advance. The first is to create a new type of magic. The second is to earn at least 7,200 credits at the academy, a feat that only a select few can achieve. However, everyone attending is at risk of not graduating, let alone reaching the Upper Institute. To address this, Werkner drills supplementary lessons into them. After class, Colette joins Vil, offering him some company. It turns out Vil has already earned every possible writing credit, but his complete failure in spellwork puts him in this precarious position. In the hallway, there's a ruckus. Sion's lackeys are boasting that he defeated the evil Sentinel, and will soon replace one of the top 3. But Sion knows the real truth. Seeing Vil pass by, he furiously approaches him, angry that a talentless loser is so far ahead of him in terms of power. Sion stops himself before doing anything foolish. Colette, noticing the tension, wonders if anything has happened between them. In the headmistress's office, Edward demands that Vil be expelled. Despite Vil being in his 6th and final year, Edward argues that the Magic Academy doesn't need a warrior. Looking through Vil's accomplishments, the headmistress notes that if they ignore his inability to use magic, he excels to a degree that calling it mere excellence is insufficient. Even if Vil fails to make Magia Vander, many paths are open to him. She proposes to Edward that, since he now knows Vil's secret, he should administer a test personally. If Vil fails the test, she will entrust the matter of advancing or expelling him to Edward. Determined to see Vil fail, Edward agrees, intending to do his utmost to ensure Vil's failure. However, the headmistress believes that Vil can pass any challenge thrown at him, even if his opponent is the dark vipermage Edward. Vil always relies on Colette to unlock and lock his locker with magic. In the study hall, he reviews all the material from different perspectives. He has to do this, otherwise, if he loses even 1 credit in writing, he won't be able to advance to the Upper Institute. The overworking even got Vil a white hair, which Colette really wants to pull out. Their commotion is interrupted by Edward. Edward demands Vil follow him to the spell hall, alone. With a big grin, Edward notes that he's giving Vil a supplementary lesson, just for him. He wants to ascertain Vil's worth personally. Vil's assignment is to land a single strike on him. If Vil succeeds, Edward promises him 5 spellwork credits. Failure means expulsion. Now that Vil has a reason to fight, Edward begins his attack. Meanwhile, Werkner is called in by the headmistress. She fills him in, activating a spell to watch Will and Edward's fight. She's given Edward permission to determine whether Vil is worthy of attempting to become a Magavander. Werkner protests, questioning why Edward, of all people, it's just too cruel. Edward is the closest to becoming a Magavander. He's been to the top of the tower. Vil barely dodges Edward's spells. Despite Edward casting low-rank spells, they are very powerful. Vil attempts to utilize his speed and attack Edward from his blind spot, but Edward's defense is impenetrable. Edward can cast spells without incantations, activating them too quickly for Vil to react. Vil can't even scratch him. Edward uses only 2 types of spells, dark magic to burn and a shield to repel. Overlapping a single spell, Edward fires a series of barrages at Vil, who becomes a punching bag, unable to respond. A talentless loser. Vil can't beat him, wishing he had his sword with him. Meanwhile, in the locker room, Colette wonders if Vil is alright. Knowing Edward, she imagines the worst. Suddenly, the door opens and Kiki, bleeding, stumbles in, signaling frantically towards Vil's locker. Seeing Kiki's state, Colette immediately unlocks it. Back at Vil's fight, Edward explains how Magavander are at the pinnacle of all mages. If Vil can't overcome someone like Edward, he has no chance of becoming one. He recounts a question Vil reviewed earlier in the library, where 10,000 dwarves with no magic incited a rebellion. How many mages did it take to quell the battle? Just one. With a wave of the wand, 10,000 dwarves were annihilated. Sword will never reach the wand, telling Will to abandon his aspirations. Fighting back, Vil says he shall never give up his dreams. Edward wants to know what drives Vil to such lengths, and grasping at the glasses Ulferia gave him, he proclaims that he wants to be with the person he loves. Shocking Edward, such a foolish reason is what pushes him this far. He promised to see the sunset with her. At the same time, Colette calls out Vil's name as she throws his sword to him. Unholstering his sword, Edward is fuming with anger and fires, but Vil slices through his magic. As Edward prepares to fire another barrage, Vil is scared, he wants to run away. But his only way to become Magavander is forward. As Vil advances upon Edward, slashing his attacks, he recounts that there is more to the 10,000 dwarf battle. A single dwarven general fought even as he lost all his brethren, and in spite of everything, he landed a single blow, and because of that, mages recognize dwarven bravery. He knows that a sword can win against a wand. Vil hides himself in the barrage and attacks from overhead, slashing through Edward's shield. In a stalemate, he had landed a scratch on Edward's face. Edward withdraws and announces that Vil is awarded 5 credits. Colette immediately rushes to him, but Vil has exhausted all his strength. The headmistress never doubted him. Seeing how Vil lunged himself at the barrage of spells, it seemed he was undaunted. Meanwhile, at the outskirts of the magical academy, his roommate is making dinner for him. She's another person who cares for him a lot. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.